no matter who you are, where you are, what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed, the light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery's Live Well, Live Whole podcast series. I'm Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, intuitive, and the co-founder of Whole Soul Mastery. I invite our listeners to explore and engage our mission here at Whole Soul Mastery, which is to inspire, illuminate, empower, and integrate all the aspects that we are in order to reflect and appreciate the greater wholeness, wellness, divinity, and whole soul mastery that we truly are. We aim to offer podcasts, services, products, courses, and inspirations to support you in your journey to live, embrace, and embody the extraordinary gifts of your whole soul mastery. So joining us today is Rene Taintor, who is an inspirer, teacher, and speaker about the solution revolution and building a divine mindset and discovering a divine connection that lives in your heart. So I'm very excited to welcome Rene today. Welcome, Rene. So good to be with you today.
So good to be with you, Marie.
Yes, and I'm really excited because anything when we're talking about the heart, right, is just, it's such a beautiful energy. And for many of us, until we're awakened or we're summoned to that awakening process, it's like a treasure inside us that's waiting to be discovered. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey of finding your way, right? How did you discover your heart consciousness? Can you tell us a little bit about that journey that you had?
Yes, I believe that I was always living from my heart, but didn't know it, and was, having problems with issues with people and relationships. And I am a retired flight attendant, but when I was working, I had a particular flight where two women that were flight attendants for some reason were kind of picking on me unfairly, couldn't figure it out. Got to my hotel room and basically called out to spirit and said, why couldn't I have said this? Why didn't I say this to them? What's the matter with me that I can't, have a comeback to them? And basically spirit said, well, because you don't have a repertoire of unkind sayings for people.
Yeah.
And, because, I'm sure everyone can relate to after a situation that you go, I could have said this.
Right.
I could have said that. And so I basically actually stood up on my bed and spread my arms out and said, help me find a way where I am impacting what's going on around me more than it impacts me. I didn't want to be affected by the people on the airplane or the crew. I wanted to have this even temperament and even way of being. And that's what started me on my journey of accepting my humanity and accepting your humanity. And then a couple years later, because that took a while, accepting my divinity and accepting your divinity was something that I wasn't expecting. And so the journey of opening my heart was to look around and see, and I felt this anyway, people are doing the best they can with what they have. And so I always gave people the benefit of the doubt and had compassion and stuff. But when I started connecting in my heart, I realized if I would stay there long enough, that more thoughts that almost didn't seem like they were mine, which I learned later were my heart thoughts.
Yeah.
The heart thoughts have love in them. and acceptance and understanding and compassion and kindness and patience. Not like the stuff in your mind where you want to judge and like, what, are you kidding me? Or, I don't even want to be around you, and all the stuff that is not heart-based.
Right. And it's amazing how if we go back to that story on that flight with those two women, what you were feeling in that moment, the energy you were probably feeling, I'm sure some of that was a state of disempowerment. They were using their power in a way that didn't bring out the best in you, that made you feel not your best. And you were aware of that. But the emotional or energetic response was this feeling of, feeling disempowered, or that they were sort of taking your power in a kind of way by their actions and their behavior. And by going back, having the presence of mind, at least, that you had when you went to that hotel room, you were actually calling out your empowerment, right?
And I'm glad you said that, because I've never seen it like that. All I know is that I launched myself back into my self-doubt.
Yeah.
Like, what's the matter with me? How come I can't stand up for myself? Or, or is even that it? So I was calling out for a way to live where, in a genuine, loving way. Because why would you want to go to all that trouble to be disingenuous? And so that I wasn't going to be impacted by what was going on around me, that I could put my love and understanding and stuff like that, which later I realized that I was actually inhabiting the two girls, the two women, inhabiting what they thought of me. I took it on.
Right, exactly. We do
I took,
take it in. We don't know. We don't know that we even do that. Often it's so unconscious.
yes,
Energy flows. And if you have a receptor inside for that negative energy, and all of our thoughts, all that we feel, all that we put our attention on every day is part of those magnetics. It's part of that magnetism inside us. So if you're a receptor for anything that they were saying, even if you had a receptor for self-doubt, they were the ones that were going to come poking, because that's the way this universe works. You were summoning in unknowingly mirrors of those energies where you didn't feel the best of yourself, right? That you didn't feel like you were in your divine empowerment. And until we wake up and start to discover and uncover, right, this new
right.
language inside ourselves, and language is vibration, right? Our
It
words and
really
our thoughts
is.
and our feelings are vibration. And until we step up and just have some experiences, like it was the discomfort of that experience that made you stand in that
Yeah.
hotel room with your arms open out wide, almost really surrendering and saying, how can I make a change so that I'm a force for good in the world instead of a receptacle for other people's pain?
Right. And so
Right?
what that led to with those women, in a course of time, I began to see that all humans are in their movie. Everyone's doing their movie. That's how Spirit gave it to me. And so when you first meet a person, that's where they're at in their movie. This is where you're at in your movie. And so how much more do you need to accept them? You don't need to know anything about their life. This is where they're at. They might be having a tough time. And so the skills that I gained through continually connecting with my heart, asking for guidance of how best to handle this situation, it led me into, like, that's the first thing I would do, is connect with my heart. And like, I didn't even have to think about it, because love is the expression of everything. I mean, love is all around us. I mean, and so when you accept the person in front of you, no matter what's going on with them, even if they're attacking you, that that's them in their movie, and that's not you. And so I didn't realize I was beginning the start of Solution Revolution when I said to myself, I want to be part of the solution, whatever's going on with me. So instead of going, well, because even if you don't say anything, to a person and you go, this guy is a jerk. I wish he would just, you don't have to say it. They're going to receive it because it is vibration. That's why I wanted authentic change and authentic response to stuff. So what happens when you are facing someone that's either in pain, they're having a problem, especially a lot of problems on the plane with seats or this or that or the other. And when you just go in that energy of acceptance in your heart, you transform the energy all around both of you. And I didn't realize that at first, you know, because to be part of the solution, your heart would say something like, I'm so sorry you're having a bad day. What can we do? What can we do about that? I have countless examples of me when I was starting to practice this, of like, whoa. And I would walk away and go, what just happened? It totally transformed the situation and healed it or had the solution.
Wow.
The solution was in the acceptance. The solution was connecting with your heart and listening to your heart and following through. Like as simple as one of the situations I was in, a lady's crying on the seat next to her is empty. And I grabbed some Kleenex out of the bathroom and I sat down. I handed her the Kleenex and I pulled her to me and we embraced. And she cried in my shoulder and I hugged her. And my heart wasn't saying, say this, do. It was a feeling because I connected with the energy of that love that is ever present in your heart. So I connected with her because my heart, I couldn't not do it. I couldn't. And here's a beautiful example Spirit gave me of how your heart leads you. You just put your groceries in the car. You look up and a little lady across the parking lot right there dropped all her groceries. You don't lean up on the car and go, should I help her? No, you are halfway across the parking lot before you even know you've moved. Why? Because your heart did this and you followed it. And it's a natural first nature response that gets taken out of us, defeated out of us,
conditioned over time,
brainwashed out of us. But when you connect, that connection actually gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it becomes your first nature.
It
and
grows
that's
like a seed, doesn't it? And you water it by giving it your attention and listening to it. That's
your awareness. Yes, your awareness of it. And it's the path of least resistance, because if you're going to be judging, once you judge someone, like, because I've been around flight attendants that judged each other. I'm not working with her. And that's why I flew like head mama in the back of the airplane or wherever, so that I could kind of have my energy on things. And I would say, well, that's okay. We'll find somebody that'll work there. You know, no big thing. But when it's like, it's a beautiful way to live, because you're not in that judgment. You don't want to judge somebody. Why? Because it's your family.
Right. And it comes back. It's an energy that you're bringing back to yourself as well. And so what I heard you say when you were in the back of the plane, what was your role? What was your title as a flight attendant?
Oh, I call it's purser, which means the head flight attendant that handles the organization of the coach service, the economy service, or chief purser would be the one that would be in head of the whole airplane. And she can
right. So like you were able to, this is where that, like, being an instrument of change, right? Instrument, like a force for good, which is what you summoned out in that hotel room. How can I be a force for good instead of a receptacle for pain and discomfort and disempowerment? And
great way to say it. Great way to say it.
Right. And when you did that and you stepped up and you claimed that was your intention, and then it sounds like then more and more you got positioned as that purser, right? That you were able to set the vibrational tone in the coach area of the plane.
And with the passengers, because who doesn't need love? You know, who does not need love? You know, if we have time, I'll give you this example. When I started learning, and this is connected to the energy game, which we haven't discussed yet, but we will in the future, because this is what happens when you are living in your ego and you do judge or you do want to attack. It's called the energy game. But when I was learning to disengage from that and choose to work to come from my heart, one of the first things that happened is that it was 1 minute before departure, and I was standing at the boarding door greeting, and this really big man came on the plane, flustered. I mean, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He was sweating. There was only one seat left in first class. It was a small plane, so it was only like 2 rows of first class. And so he looks up, and the overhead bin is full, and he's mad, and he's cursing.
Wow.
You know, and he goes, where am I going to put my bags? You know, and I know he was stressed from
running late.
Right. So, but my ego self, my human self wanted to say, well, welcome aboard to you, buddy. Right. But I transferred it over to my heart, and I said, here, let me take your bags. You need to sit down here. I've got your bags. I promise you, I will find a place for them, and I'll bring them up to you when we land. So he's like kind of surprised, and he sits down. I get an ice water and a cold towel for him.
Wow.
I said, you sit down there, you relax. We're going to shut the door shortly. I'll be right back to check on you. I go back, find a place for his bags back in economy, because there was no room up in first class. And he sits down, and I come up, and they shut the door, and we're getting ready to taxi and do the announcement. And I go up to him. He's only a few feet away, because there's I'm standing at the front of 2 rows of first class. And I walk over to him, and I go, are you doing okay now, my friend? He grabs my hand. He goes, I am so sorry I was such a jerk. I so appreciate what you have done for me. I mean, I said, look, I'm glad you're doing better. I'm glad you're doing better. So, so then I do the demonstration at the front of the cabin, and then I was sitting in the back. So I go back there, and when I came up to check on him again, just to say hi and see, he was just like all over me with apologies. I was cussing you. And so when I get back on my jump seat, I'm going, something is going on here. And this was at the beginning of me realizing the power of the heart, the power of connecting to your heart in a genuine way, because then you want to be part of the solution wherever you go, instead of part of the problem. I could have said, well, look, it's not my fault that you brought all these bags. I mean, there was like way too many bags.
Right.
But see, that was a choice I had.
It is a choice.
And I made the conscious choice to walk away from that judgment aspect, that ego aspect,
right,
that energy game aspect, and connect with my heart, which would have the answers that would be in resonance with my heart and who I am, because that is who I am.
Right. And it's amazing. It is just in the early stages of being on this hero's journey, or in this, journey of transformation, that we all undergo at some point. And we're all in that right now in some level in our lives. But the first steps, Renee, you languaged it so beautifully, is the ability to, number one, pay attention. Notice that something didn't feel good. That's the first thing. Most people, they feel and they're aware that something happened, but they don't take the next step, which is to have a little pause, just a little moment where you just give yourself. And in this journey, we realize, I'm going to take a breath here, right? Because this energy is coming full force into my face, right? I've got all these other passengers I'm responsible for, and I still have to do my job, is probably what your ego's thinking. I got a lot on my plate here, and here's this guy coming in with all of this, right? That can upset the apple.
I didn't know to give myself options.
Right.
Because when you're in that ego mindset, it's like it's the same stuff going round and round and round. And you access the same old thoughts, the same old misperceptions, the same erroneous beliefs.
And the same responses, right? The same reaction.
And reactions. And you don't say, is there another way to look at this? You don't say that. And so connecting with your heart consciously, at first you're going, well, what would my heart do? What would my heart do in this moment? And because I've always been that way, it was so easy for me to just jump in my heart. Well, heck, I would, even as a child, I would do things and my parents would say, you can't do that. You can't just love everybody. You can't. And I was like,
what a message, right? What a message.
You can't. I used to tell my kids, there's no such thing as bad people.
Yeah.
Only people who have made unwise choices. And then that has led them into the consequences of their choices.
Right. And made unwise choices that when they were disconnected from their heart, because that's the only way we truly can make those choices that would hurt or negatively impact another person, is when we are disconnected. And
Right.
most people don't know that when you were a little kid, you didn't have this language. You hadn't
Right.
lived enough. You're listening to
Right.
your parents who are giving you their best insight, their
Right.
best information, trying to protect you and help you figure out this world. And it takes a lifetime of journeying to listen to those. And I might even say that tape, that recording of their messages in your head.
Right.
Right. And so, but it is so interesting. So you're saying for you, like, you needed to go straight into your heart. That was what you knew to do, to activate that there was another way to perceive the situation. This is a great example with this man, because I think it happens to all of us. It can happen to us on the highway. It can happen to us while we're driving, anywhere where somebody just has all this emotion and they aren't managing that very well because they're stressed out, or
Right.
they're angry, or they're in some kind of negative emotional state.
And then when you meet that person, unless you are conscious and that your option is to go connect with your heart, you're going to go, well, yeah, well, and you too, and then you too, and like, take this and hear this.
Yeah.
And then you're in that ego energy game where you're going to keep going. And the person that has the most energy, either the intimidator or interrogator or bully,
Right.
then the other person's going to back down. And then what?
And then they're disempowered. And then they're disempowered.
You haven't solved anything. You haven't. And so what I began to learn is that my heart is the safest place to be, because I've learned that the ego will kick you when you're down and take credit when you're up.
Whoa, Renee.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, see, I told you if you did that, you would be, didn't I tell you that kind of thing?
Right.
But your heart will never lie to you. Your heart is the safest place there is. Even when you're in pain, even when you're confused, when you don't know what to do or say, you go into your heart, because the answer might be, don't do anything right now. The answer might be in that moment. And living in that moment and connecting to your heart is the most powerful place to be. I believe it is the infinite connection that is alive and ever present in you, that whatever time of day or middle of the night, it is there for you because it's part of you and it is you. And if you see that, so once I started seeing everybody's in their movie and, fast forward to now I'm accepting your divinity.
Yeah.
I would walk through the plane and I would see all the crew members and all the passengers as divine human beings riding in an airplane, and they have no clue who they are. I mean, there might be some. So you walk by them and you are carrying this energy in your heart, which is vibration,
right,
and energy and truth.
right.
Now you're walking through the cabin and, I'm not even on a short flight where all we did was serve drinks or whatever, people would come up and go, this is the best flight I ever had. The energy is there. And when I got based at my last 4 years of my domicile was in Las Vegas, had the best time there. My job that I would pick would be to board the passengers.
Yeah.
Because I could connect with every single one of them. And smile and eye contact and heart contact. And it makes a difference. Because
It's so true. I have a friend the same. It gives me chills when you say that, Renee. As you're awakening and you realize that force for good, that pure positive energy that wants to emanate from your energy field, that immediately affects other people. We can use it for good and not use it for good. But I know another friend who got a job driving those big, like double-decker buses in my local town, right? It's the free transportation. And she got that job as a light worker, knowing that she could greet every single person who enters her bus. And if she could do that in people's day, then she will have done her work.
well, and there's people like that all over the world. I started flying in 1967 and I saw it then. I didn't even know what I was seeing. And I recently had an experience where I was walking toward these people, and this man was in a wheelchair, and I could kind of feel that he was like, kind of dejected or whatever. And he looked up as I was approaching, and I gave him the biggest smile, and he gave it right back. And that proves to me that the hearts on the planet are active and activated, because you could be going through all these struggles and pain and horrible things, and you don't know what to do, and you're confused and you're in pain. But yet when the situation presents itself and another human being comes in contact with you, your heart is the first thing to respond. I have seen it for years everywhere, even people that were on my flights that we didn't even speak the same language, like refugees that we were bringing to the US.
Right.
We would touch our hearts, we would hold hands, and our eyes. It's
a universal language, isn't it?
yes,
Universal, and it transcends words.
and it's from your heart.
Yeah.
Like when people are talking about people will touch their hearts.
Right.
People, if they're, a lot of people will touch their heart. They don't touch here.
Right.
They touch.
I do it all the time. It doesn't always
Yes.
show up because like I'm low in this podcast right now on the screen. But whenever somebody says something that moves me, I automatically touch my heart, because I take it in even deeper. I say, oh, I resonate with that. Right. When I see animals, right, and I'm not having a verbal conversation, it's a heart connection. And they
Yes.
have it with me. They have it with me. It's extraordinary.
Well, it's because we're all connected, and that love. In fact, I wanted to mention that all this stuff I was learning about the heart and the power of the heart, and the heart has a consciousness because it is guiding me, teaching me, leading me, telling me, because all I have to do is connect. Then years later, they came out with the Heart Math Institute and
Right.
all the books on the heart, and all the studies with Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton with the heart, and all this stuff. And I'm just going, if that wasn't a validation of the power, and all I had to do was connect, because I didn't want to live in that energy of, I'm not sure how to handle this situation, because I don't play games. I don't do mind games. And when I'm in that situation, seriously, I have nothing to say. I go quiet, because I'm not going to say anything nasty. I don't even think it.
Yeah.
I don't even think anything nasty. Why? Because your heart doesn't.
Right.
Your heart will, and when you get rid of judgment, when you let go of the energy game, which we can talk about sometime, what do you think replaces judgment?
Love.
Compassion.
Compassion.
Compassion is, I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, is even a higher vibration than love. Because
Wow.
that means that, like, I happened to see a video clip of Saddam Hussein being hung. I mean, they put the black thing over his head. I mean, I don't think they showed, I don't remember that. But instead of, I mean, I knew what he did. Killed his wife, his daughter's husbands, killed his brothers. He was just an evil man. But because I live in my heart, when that was going on, I was going, brother, what have you done? I love you, and I know that if you really knew what you were doing, you wouldn't have done that. So receive my love. Receive my love, because you didn't have what you could have had modeled for you.
Well, and receive the universal love that is available. You know, what you just said about Saddam Hussein, you can say about the oceans that were affected by a tsunami and the nuclear reactors, like in Japan. We can also feel that same kind of love and compassion for the water that could be angry, or those areas of the planet that have experienced incredible trauma. You know, there's so many ways to send this universal, infinite supply of pure positive energy to any of these people, places that we otherwise might want to judge or react to in some way, that otherwise we're in that lower mind, we're in our ego mind that's trying to figure it out, or trying to figure out what our perspective is going to be on it. The heart doesn't even necessarily have a perspective. The heart just knows frequency, and it knows love, and it knows vibrations of compassion and light, and it knows how to lead us. That's what I also hear you really saying.
That's amazing. The heart never tires of expressing itself, because you know this is true when you're in a situation where you're taking care of your mom, and she's dying, and you rise to the occasion to give her what she needs, and you might be tired, or you might be this or that, or exhausted, or stressed, but your heart is going to step up and give you the energy you need, the wisdom you need, the compassion, the love, all the expressions of the heart. And they're listed in the Bible. All, love is patient, love is kind, that one. And I used to pray even when I was 20 years old, because that's when I started flying. We would fly over these cities, never ending, like Los Angeles, like, oh my God, this huge city. Wow. And I would just pray over the whole city. Somebody down there just got married. Somebody just died. Somebody just got born. Somebody just got robbed. Somebody just got in a car accident. Somebody, it's humanity going on down there. And I would just blanket the whole city with love. Didn't even who does that?
Who does that? Light workers, and you, and people who are tapped in. See, like some of us, we haven't talked about this much, but some of us, we kind of come through a veil of forgetfulness when we come into this world. We're born, and then we immediately are taken care of by whoever our immediate caregivers are. And then over time, there's the conditioning of this world of humanity that's kind of cultural conditioning, global conditioning, local conditioning. And we take that on as our own. But some of us come in with a little less forgetfulness. We're still connected in some way. We don't forget that we came from the source, that we came from light, that we came from this like unified field of consciousness. And even if it's just a couple little sprinkles of that, it doesn't have to be the full awareness of that.
Yeah, because you wouldn't have the language of that when you were a kid.
Right? But many of us still, it's amazing the number of people I connect with because I do this work. I have these podcasts, and I'm an intuitive, and I do these readings. And Renee, you were in the field of work you were in, right? Meeting humanity every day where it was. But those little sprinkles that were still awake, that like little fairy dust, right? That little awareness of there's something more that I can do here than most people believe in. And even if it's not conscious, it's coming, the heart knows how to express that if we can get out of the way. And a lot of people talk about the ego and the mind, right? That we do. There's a training back of the mind. The mind was conditioned to take over in this realm. We were parented and we were taught in our school systems and in our local communities, right? And now the internet parents a lot of kids, right? That's where they get their feedback. And still a lot of that conditioning is showing people that this world is challenging, that it's hard, that people can be mean, that there's sarcasm, that there's all these things that we have to learn how to negotiate and maybe deflect or defend against. But truly, there's these little sprinkles in our hearts. And just like you talked about that man in the wheelchair, I'm sure you have, like, I love listening to your examples and the guy that was angry, right? They both all you did was recognize that they have a heart and they have the consciousness inside them, even if it's not what they're expressing. You knew it for them because you knew it inside you.
Well, and they are family I haven't met yet.
Wow.
My heart told me,
Yeah.
strangers are family you haven't met yet. And so if you see them as divine, you can't really see them as divine until you see yourself as divine. And now you have a whole bunch of divine humans walking around. And
Right.
I like to say divine humans because you have a human side and a divine side.
Yeah.
And it's important to know that they're together. I mean, they're coexisting. And it's a dance between the two. Sometimes you're more human and you're just going, I'm having a terrible day. Get out of my face. Leave me alone. But when you accept your humanity,
Yeah.
and you're not going to judge yourself and you're not going to let anybody else judge you. I mean, they can judge you, but you're not going to inhabit it. And a couple of my best one-liner
Yeah.
to help me accept my humanity when I was in the middle of it and couldn't do it. Are you ready for it? This is a very good one-liner.
Yeah.
Oops. Oops. Like, did I mean to drop all those packages? I did that one time in the post office. I had like 10 packages. I'm in line. I'm mailing stuff for Christmas. And I'm the next one in line. And there's like 20 people behind me. And all the packages go on the floor. And I look up and they're all looking at me. And I go, oops, I feel so human right now.
And it's humility. And
Well,
humility
they
takes you to
laughed.
your heart. Yeah.
They laughed. And then, 5 of them came over to help me up with the packages. But in me accepting my humanity, I saw later that it allows them to, because pretty much everyone can relate to being a human. But how many people do not accept it? How many people are apologizing for being human all the time?
Right.
So when you learn this, oh, shoot, I didn't mean to do that. Well, of course you didn't.
Right.
But is everything perfect? No. You're going to stub your toe. You're going to drop and break things. You're going to spill wine on somebody or whatever.
Right.
Then if you can accept your humanity and go, oops, I feel so human right now.
Right.
And laugh at yourself. Tell on yourself. You know what I did today? I can't believe I'm going to tell you this out loud. And then it gives other people permission to go, oh, dude, I can really relate to that. And because most of us do not accept our humanity. They don't. They're judging themselves. They're judging other people around them. They're embarrassed. A lot of people won't go, like if they made a mistake somewhere, they don't want to go back to that person's house or back to that restaurant or back to that. Because
Right. We take it in as shame. We take it in as shame. Right.
yeah. And if you can, and so this was such an incredible journey for me to accept my humanity, no matter what it was. Like, I'm tired. I don't want to make dinner. You guys, let's have cereal for dinner. The kids will go, yay, cereal for dinner. Or it's just like, then it lightens your load.
Yeah, it
And
does.
when you can accept your humanity, then you personally can get out of the energy game and it's easier to connect with your heart. So you've got your ego mindset and your divine mindset, which is really in your heart.
Yeah.
And
You have a heart brain. There's a
yes.
physical brain and then there's a heart brain.
And
you
there's
give
actually
yourself
those
permission.
brain cells are not connected to this brain.
Right.
I learned that
Like our first brain. It's our first brain. Is
oh
the
my
heart.
gosh.
Right.
And the heart is the only thing that pulses or beats. And I heard this too, and when I was reading somebody's on the heart math stuff, that you could take a little thin tissue of the heart and graft it to your hand, and it'll be throbbing. It'll be throbbing.
Oh.
And the heart in the zygote, when the baby is growing,
Yeah.
it starts itself.
Wow.
You get the stem cells all start, this is going to be the lungs, this will be the liver, this will be the heart. The heart starts itself.
Right.
And the heart is
The divine spark in that heart starts
it
itself.
starts
Right?
itself.
It's
And
like,
so the heart is an amazing mystery, an amazing tool. It's a tool because your mind wants to react. You know, the last time this happened, this is what I did, and it's going to work for me this time because I need to. Most people appoint themselves a committee of one to teach someone a lesson because they have a lot of nerve saying that, doing that, thinking that. You know what? Let them be their human.
yeah.
Let them be their human, and then you be your divine human. You be the one to go up and put your arms around them. It looks like you need a hug.
Yeah.
You know, I was on the first flight out of Las Vegas after 9/11,
Wow, Renee. Wow.
and we only had 42 passengers or something like that.
Wow.
And I was the greeter. I wanted to greet, and the people really slowly walked down the jetway to get on the plane. And the first guy was kind of hesitant. I stepped up and I hugged him. And I hugged the second person. And I hugged the third person. And after that, everybody wanted a hug from their flight attendant.
I bet.
Because there were no words.
Your humanity and your divinity in that moment. You were human and divine on that day.
It was good for me. It was good for them. And I will never forget that. But what made me do that?
The heart.
My heart. I wasn't standing at the door watching them come down the jetway and going, let's see, what am I going to do when they come? No, that isn't how you live. You're in a constant present moment connecting with your heart.
First brain. We should call that. It's first brain. And second brain listens to the first brain, just like you said, the purser, right? There's somebody who's like, there's a purser and then there's like a chief purser. The
Right.
chief purser informs the purser, right?
Right. Well, on the airplane, see, because the chief purser can't run first class and business class and coach.
Oh, right.
But she's the one that will communicate to the rest of the 20 flight attendants if there was anything they need to know or an emergency or something, and communicates with the cockpit. So there's two pursers because economy section was so huge on the 747 and other airplanes that require that many people. So
but they take their guidance from the chief purser. Like really that sets the overall tone and
right.
gives the guidance. And I see your heart as the chief purser.
Yes,
right?
that's a good way to put it.
Right? And it's first brain. And we do live in this upside down world where we think our mental minds, our physical brain, right, and our egos need to lead for us. But see, that's what happens is the ego's not really designed, and it doesn't have the skills to lead. It doesn't have access to the kind of consciousness that heart that started itself, that started from a divine spark and a divine consciousness has. And so it's like in this awakening process, in this journey of, like you said, in building the divine mindset or this revolution solution that you tapped into, it's like we have to turn this upside down world right side up and get the heart leading again to be that chief purser, that first brain that gives the instructions, because the heart is all knowing. That's why you didn't have to think at the gate, what am I going to say? Because it already knew.
See, because you anticipate the leading of the heart. You trust the heart. You can't trust your mind. Your mind will lie to you. I have been fooled before thinking I'm not in stress. I was totally stressed because I was trying to be conscious, take care of yourself, don't be in stress, and then I would be shocked to find out I was in total stress because your mind will lie to you. Yes. Your mind will lie to you. No, you're doing fine. No, I'm fine. No, really, I'm fine. No, that's why you can trust your heart. Your heart will never lie to you. And when I was learning the process between the ego mindset and the divine mindset that's in your heart, and I was going back and forth, so I learned that it was really important to allow my human side, my ego mindset, to have its say, because You are in the human race, and if something happens, somebody cuts you off in the freeway, I mean, I've had what are you doing? Dude, didn't you see me? You know, you're doing all this stuff, and there might be some colorful language there. And so I call her Little Renee, and then, you know, Big Renee or Divine Renee or whatever.
Renee.
And I would just go, okay, honey, let it out. Come on. Yeah. More? Do you have more? Don't sugarcoat it. Give me all of it, baby. You know, like that. And so then I would say, are you done? Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear from you, but we're going to respond from our heart, because the heart is in the driver's seat of this whole vehicle.
This vehicle, right?
The heart is in, and so after a while, my ego, Little Renee, could really trust that I was going to let her have full-bodied expression. And trust me, we all know what that can look like.
Oh yeah, I've had my rounds of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then it got to be so there wasn't as much response from the ego. Yeah, that kind of, you know, bums me out a little bit. You know, is that it? Well, and so there's like an evolution and a process of, because then now, because you're putting so much awareness and attention and connecting with your heart and wanting your heart to lead, because that is a part of you. It is the part where all the wisdom lives. I mean, you have, you know, mind-based wisdom, like step over a snake, don't step on it. Yeah. I'm pretty sure your heart would tell you that too, but there's a lot of stuff in the mind but there's a lot in the heart that the ego mind does not have. And so the process of learning to trust that and allow yourself to do the dance. You know what? I am just going to be human all day long today. Get out of the way. Yeah. I am stressed. I'm tired. I don't want to clean my house or whatever. But you do that in the spirit of accepting your humanity. You do it in the spirit of knowing that your divinity is in control. Your heart is going to love you through that. So I can say, get out of my way. It's going to be a rough day. No, it only lasted maybe a half hour, 15 minutes, because I could do that all day long if I wanted, but that little bit of expression from the ego was enough.
Yep.
Because now you're going, you know, I don't want to really be in that energy. The heart is much more, it's much lighter, it's safer, it's got all the wisdom, the light.
Exactly. Well, and I think about all those things that, you know, we try, because we're conditioned also to repress those emotions and feelings that we have because it's not acceptable, and then it blurts out another way. It somehow comes out another way, right? If it leaks out, if we don't express it, so we repress it until we do give it permission to express. But when you're more conscious of that, you can let it out in the moments that it's purposeful, it's productive, it can help you, right? And initially that guy in the plane you maybe never saw him again, but you touched that life that day where you allowed him to express what he needed to express. You went and took a couple deep breaths and moved into your heart and had a different response to him. And that may have changed his perspective forever, because what you did, you kind of modeled it in that way for him. What was repressed could be expressed. And maybe over time, he learned what you found out, that if you let it out and you let it have its day, it doesn't take that long. For some of us, It might take longer, but it doesn't take that long. You know, when I was going through, you know, my family's, you know, tragedy and my family's catalyst for our awakening, I had it out with a lot of things. Like, I had it out with my ego. I had it out with source. I had it out with my guides. You know, they would give guidance and I would try it and I would still be in pain. And I had a lot of feelings about that. So when you go your round.
I know that one.
Oh yeah. You know, and we go, and you have to test it out. You have to experience it to know it, like we're talking about it. And everybody's invited to experience it. And I think about that guy on the plane, and I'm just using him as an example. You know, that he was given the opportunity to go reevaluate himself and think about other ways to express himself and what had bottled up inside him to get him to the gate, to get him in front of you. And maybe there's another way. And the times that I still implode in my life, because I still have some pretty colorful implosions and explosions with myself, it's like you're saying, we are still human beings and we are also divinity.
We do this dance. And if you can, when you're in that spirit of accepting your humanity, and you know that you've got access to the infinite, I mean, dang, that is a lot. You have access to infinite wisdom, infinite light, infinite love, infinite intelligence, anything you need, then it's not as hard to let that human come out and to say, this is just part of the dance right now. And I will say to somebody, you know, I wasn't in my heart space then.
Yeah.
But there's times when I deliberately don't go into the heart space because it's such a big feeling of whatever it is that needs to be expressed in that way from my ego, that I understand the importance of doing that. Because what am I going to do?
Push
Tamp
it down
those feelings? No, they need to come out. And then because you're in the habit of this, and because your intent is to live from the heart so that you are part of the solution. And so let me just say briefly about when I started writing about this, about the solution revolution, that I realized that by me not reacting to people and becoming part of the problem, that instead I was becoming part of the solution, that it was literally transforming people and energy around me. I started seeing that as I am building peace on earth in my little niche here. Because if I don't ever go to judgment, I mean, if I do, it'll be for a few seconds, right?
Yeah.
So if I continue to do that, then I am actually the solution for peace on earth in my little corner.
Yeah.
And then I started saying, and how did that work, Renee? Well, first I was learning that I was like reacting in my ego mind. And then when I was connecting with the heart, those thoughts were different. They were loving. Those thoughts that come from your heart are divine, living, powerful, high vibration thoughts. Way different than the stuff in your mind, which is dense and, depressing it can be, and
critical. It's very critical.
And reactive. Yeah. So I coined the terms for me. You're either a reactive creator in whatever moment, or a conscious creator. A reactive creator is like the ball in a pinball machine. Something happens at work. You go home and you go, blah, 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 blah. And then your husband the next day goes, blah, 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 blah. My wife, and then your friends, and they're all doing it. And then 6 months later, you're in a party and you go, you think that's bad. My friend's boss. And now you're reactivating the past, a moment from 6 months ago, reactivating so other people can reactivate and carry it on and keep it going. But the same thing works with love. So that when I choose love and choose to move from my heart, I am changing the whole paradigm right in front of me. In fact, one of the most powerful examples is I was greeting, and this man came on the plane, and there were people like trying to go to the other part. So we had a few minutes in front. I go, you look really nice today. He said, well, thank you. So are you going on a business trip, or, and I just started chatting with him, and he was sitting in first class in the last row. And so I said, okay, well, have a nice flight. I'm working back there, and I might see you, but, stuff like that. A few times I went up to get stuff in first class. I saw him and I go, how you doing, amigo, or whatever. And he handed me a letter when he got off the plane. And when I read it, he was going to kill himself. He said, I know, look at me.
Right.
You put light in my heart. And I was like, whoa.
Whoa.
All I did was connect. That's
Yeah.
all I did. How hard is that? Open your eyes, open your heart. I've even said to people, to a woman, love your jacket. Can I have it when the flight's over? I actually did that with earrings. This gal had the cutest earrings. I go, oh God, you have to give me your earrings. I'll give you mine. You give me yours. Because people like to play. They like to play on the airplane.
Yeah.
She gave them to me. I said, no, I was kidding. Here, let me buy you a drink instead. No. She goes, no, if I have your earrings, I will never forget you. And I said, same thing. I have her earrings. Wow. I mean, how hard is it to be the solution wherever you go? It's hard if you're coming from up here. Yeah. You have to go to your heart and then don't think about it. Connect. Just like that when you saw the lady drop her groceries, you didn't say, oh, I'm kind of busy. I
don't really have time for that today. Yeah.
No, you're like over there before you even know you're over there. And and it's not just you're helping her, oh honey, I'm so sorry, are you okay? Can I, here, let me get this. So it's not just to do it and no connection. Because your heart's gonna say, oh, well, you have a nice day. Right. Wait, I have a bag in my car since your bag broke. Just a minute, you go get your bag in the car and you give it to her. I mean, it is a way to live. And as far as I'm concerned, it is the way to live, because you don't have to think about it. If you're living from your ego mind, and you got to keep track of the judgments, you got to keep track of the people you don't like, you got to keep track of, keeping your distance from situations or people.
It's always in a defensive posture, always.
Yes.
And it's strategizing, planning.
And then it's always on your mind, and it's always, and you replay the conversations. I should have said, and the horse you rode in on, and but in your heart, then when you go back and think about something, you're thinking about the connection you had. Maybe you didn't like the dress that person was wearing, like, oh honey, really? That your little human would be going, but I don't even get that anymore. I don't. Because you know what? She thinks she looks great. God bless you.
Right?
God
you
bless
do. You get to this place. You do. It takes the practice you're talking about. It takes the awareness. But, to our listeners, you do get to a place where it's easier. And we're both here saying it doesn't mean that you're never going to have a moment of judgment again.
You're a divine human.
It just means that you know what to do, and you know who's thinking for you in that moment, which brain is perceiving.
You have the tools.
You have the tools.
In your mind, if you're in your ego mind and you're in a situation you don't know what to do or say, you're running around, well, how can I get the upper hand? And you're playing the energy game, which means you're not getting energy from inside of you, from your source. That means you have to win that argument. You have to show them who's boss. You have to kick them while they're down. You got to take credit for what they did, whatever those dynamics are.
Yeah.
It's somebody loses. And that's what the energy game is. And in fact, in physics, it even happens that it's possible one atom can rob energy from another atom, split second wise, and then that atom has to go get energy. So to get out of that, and I used to say, you have to be out of your mind to be into your heart.
Right? So Renee, we're out of our minds, right? And some people we know think that,
Yes.
Truly. And it's okay, because I'm glad I am in my heart and I have this awareness, because it makes life a whole lot more fun.
And they love us. And people, and what I learned about this energy, because as you grow in this energy, it's always been there. It's always been a part of you, but you have amplified it with your attention and your intention.
Yep.
And so you want to have this be your focus and where you live from, And so as you do that more and more, it's like it is so first nature that you're not even thinking about
It
it.
is. It becomes, it's just like give the example of the woman who's, her groceries fell all over the place. And we talk about the heart that starts beating in the first 3 weeks of life after conception, right? And it starts really, to me, I don't know that science says this yet, but I know it starts with a divine spark. That's the life force that activates us as a being, right?
Together.
And it's that life force flow that we're resetting right now inside ourselves and on the planet too, right? And any of us that are already in these stages of awakening from this conversation, I love when you talked about flying over all these cities, having the awareness to share that spark of life, to share that universal consciousness that's a language, that is an energy that we all feel. I'm sure those cities felt that day. That man that you told him how lovely he was dressed and he sends you that note. We are an instrument of divine light and positive change and being a force for good in the world every single day because of the heart that beats inside us.
And we model that for people. And so I see what's happening with this virus thing, that people don't have the distractions of their job, or since they can't be with families, maybe some family connections were really difficult and painful. And so it's forcing them to go inside. And I've seen people, well, you've seen people are doing amazing things like this in Italy, these apartment buildings that were maybe 50 feet apart from each other. They brought out their musical instruments and played music for each other.
I didn't see that. That's amazing.
Somebody doing a yoga class and, saying, okay, we're going to do this. And everybody's got their mats on the patio. And it's the heart finding ways to connect and express.
Yes.
Even in the tiniest little way.
Yes.
Even in the smallest way. Like I was at the market, I had my mask and my gloves, and someone said, oh, you go in front of me because you have only a couple things. And I said, I'm smiling, but you can't see it. And she goes, yes, I can. I see it in your eyes.
Oh.
So people and they're doing the right thing. And so I think that hearts all over the planet are connecting.
They are. They are. And that's the invitation in these times. And that's part of what our podcasts are, Renee. We're going to do more podcasts together. This is just the first little seed that we're planting, because we have a lot to share and a lot of things that we might say that just touches a life, that inspires somebody's day. And that's part of what Whole Soul Mastery wants to do, is to invite you into knowing your heart and your mastery and your humanness and your divinity, and that it's okay. All those aspects make you who you are. And you have been on a life's journey, Renee, like really exploring that, seeking it, wanting to understand it, wanting to play with it, wanting to be that, right? And to form those connections.
Why did I even care that I wanted to find a way where I could impact what was going on around me more than it impacted me? Because I didn't like feeling negative about anybody. I didn't like judging people. And I didn't even know this. It's because when you judge someone, it's not in your heart.
Yeah.
Your heart doesn't do that. Your heart will find a way to express the love in compassion, in helpfulness, rushing to help.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if I could say this, like when you were talking before about the mind and the heart, I was feeling that energy of the ego is kind of you were saying someone has to lose, right? You have to take their power from the ego. But, it's like the ego is somebody once said to me, the zero sum game. I hadn't heard that expression before, but I guess zero sum means for me to win, you have to lose. That's the ego. But the heart is win-win, and we all win. and it's such in a place of neutrality and knowing that everybody wins all the time because of the light and the gifts we truly are. And it's knowing that for us, even when we forget and even when our ego does lead our lives, it's just a perspective shift and realizing that the ego is oriented in that win-lose scenario. And when people do things that make us feel good, or we hear the stories that you shared today, it's like our heart, we resonate because our hearts know that's how it's meant to
The
be.
vibration. It's the vibration. And so when we have to make peace with the ego,
Yeah.
because the ego, otherwise, it's everything is still in the oneness.
Yeah.
And so the ego is there. And so the ego, you need to say, I understand. I would say, I understand that you're upset and that you want to, of course, I've never been, you want to hurt somebody. No, I've never wanted to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
But, the ego would go on, I'm hurt. And, yeah, I understand. So come here and let me love on you. I honor what you're saying. I honor what you're feeling. And that is self-acceptance. And that is accepting your humanity. Well, I can't always do that. And even at my age, I'm still working on that in some areas of my life.
We all are, right? We all are.
But to be able to access the heart and know that you have an infinite tool to be part of the solution, because in any given moment in your life, you are either part of the solution or part of the problem, and it's your choice. And you can say somebody made me do that, but the energy game is all about, well, if my boss was nicer, it would be easier. Or if my husband would only do this, if my kids, if the school would, if my car would just not, quit breaking down, then that's all external stuff. And one of my most favorite expressions of all time, God bless him, Wayne Dyer, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that goes for people. How could I have looked at Saddam Hussein and had compassion? That does not come from your mind. And I wasn't surprised either. I mean, because whenever I would hear something, I would just go, oh man, honey, what are you doing?
Right.
And the stuff that's going on in our planet, and learning things that have been going on that haven't been for the good of all.
Right.
That people had their own self agendas and those kinds of things. I feel the same way about those people, heads of corporations and stuff.
All of it.
Like my heart goes out to them, and I've prayed for their hearts. I've prayed for them. I've prayed for the planet,
And these are the things that we do as instruments of change, as we really become that force for good. And, and it's a shift. It's a shift, and it's a conscious choice. I love what you talk about, that between the reactor creator and the conscious creator, right? And we are all in that world right now, remembering that, number one, we have choice, that there are options, that we don't have to react from the programming and conditioning that we've had, that there are other options. And I just want to say, I thank you so much, Renee, for joining us today, because you've given us so many beautiful examples of how one light can touch another, when we could have just as easily reacted and had a different engagement with that person or a thing or an event or something, and it would have spun in a different direction. But we can be these forces for good, these instruments of positive change. Not that we need to change. It's not missionary work in the sense of like trying to change somebody else. It's being who we are and letting
response. You change, and as you transform. So the beautiful thing about the love coming through your heart and doing this way of living is that the love flows through you from source first. So you get the love first.
Right.
The love you give, you're getting it in that moment.
Right.
And for me, that is the definition of you reap what you sow, because I am sowing love in that moment. And as
Through
I'm
me,
giving
through
it,
me, and
I'm
giving it.
getting it right back. Because like when I say to you, I love you, Marie, I'm not feeling your love, I'm feeling my love. And when you say, I love you too, Renee, you're feeling your love. But because this love vibration, we receive the vibrations from each other, and it always feels good. It always lifts you up, even if it's a split second in the street when somebody walks by. I have had the coolest, funnest, most loving, sometimes hilarious one-liner situations with people that you walk by on the street or you see in the market. And you look really good today. Wow, girl, you were on your game. Well, cool. Would you be my new best friend? Or whatever. And then you laugh and then you move on your way.
Right.
And it's like just and it's the heart space that does that. I don't go, okay, I'm in the market, so I'm going to try to connect with everybody. So who's the first person? No, that isn't how it works.
It's spontaneous and in the moment. It is.
You live like a little child, and your eyes are open, your heart's open, and dance with what comes to your front door. Dance with what's in front of you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so good. It's so good. Well, I'm going to have you back, because we need to definitely keep having these conversations. There's so many beautiful parcels of energy that are sprinkles in people's day. And these insights go a long way in creating breadcrumbs for people to follow. You followed them. I followed them. I'm learning from your breadcrumbs, and you've learned from mine.
And I like that terminology, because it is. But you're the one that has to open your eyes and go, oh, a breadcrumb, and pick it up.
Right.
Oh.
And recognize it. And that's what we invite people to do. We're inviting people into this awareness just by listening to our conversations. They'll say, gosh, I'd like to get some of that awareness. Like I'd like to have some of what they're having. And we say, you can, right? Hang out with us, listen to some of these podcasts. There's going to be more. And when you put yourself around that kind of energy, it awakens in you what you already know. You have this awareness too, right? Everybody has access.
And the good news is I'm not changing anybody.
Right.
I'm just choosing to be the solution in my moments.
Yes.
And as it turns out, it does transform the energy around people. I have so many examples of
it's extraordinary. It is.
Of just showing up in the moment and having it literally change people's faces, their demeanor, their actions, their words.
Yeah, it does. Energy, positive, pure positive energy does, because it speaks that universal language that gives somebody who's angry or frustrated in the moment permission to move or interact a different way.
What happens is you're loving them in the space that they're in. You're saying, oh my gosh, I see that you do have a problem. Let's see if we can solve this.
Yeah.
And so you're not saying you need to get out of that. What happens is by you giving them what they need, which is love in the moment, however that's going to manifest in the way of a solution, a hug, or back off, or step forward, then it transforms them. And it's the energy of the heart that does that, because it reaches out way beyond you.
Yeah.
It is magic.
It's a field of energy that we can access. It is a field of energy, and we're tapped into it, turned on to it right now.
It is.
Can I ask you, Renee, where can people find more information? I know they can definitely tap into more of our podcasts, and we talked before we got on this show today. And I know, Renee, that you have the intention of setting up a Facebook page for the Solution Revolution where people can find you, right? And so soon people can find you on Facebook with that, and through our podcast and through our links. So you're going to be seeing more of Renee here at Whole Soul Mastery. We're so grateful to have you on this podcast today. And we invite our listeners to visit us at wholesoulmastery.com. You can find us on YouTube and on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We very soon are going to be on all the podcast platforms, or many of them anyway. So that's coming in the very near future. So that shows, podcasts like this will literally also be where you just want to pop in your earbuds, and when you're journeying and traveling, you can listen to us that way. And so I just want to thank you. I want to thank you, Renee. You're fantastic.
You're so welcome. I always enjoy talking with you, Marie. We both get energized.
We do get energized. That's the energy of the heart, right? That's that field of energy that is flowing, that pure positive energy. And we gain energy from these conversations. That's also when you're in your heart, when you gain energy versus lose it.
Yes.
You're in your heart. So thank you. We hope everybody has a fabulous day, and we'll see you very soon for another podcast from wholesoulmastery.com. Thanks for joining us. Blessings.